Finally doing it. Finally leaving the homestead. It's been 3 years since I have gone anywhere. And this video isn't really going to be about that too much. I'll mention it a bit more. But I'm heading down to Texas to do a talk at the Exit and Build Summit, which is an awesome event. And I'm finally getting off the property, and I haven't since the Rona. So it's been 3 years since I have left and gone anywhere. But in this video, I thought I'd just do a kind of a quick tour of the property and talk a little bit about why being on your own land is at least the most empowering thing that I've experienced in my life. And I wanted to kind of share some thoughts on why that is, sort of some philosophical and utilitarian ramblings, if you will. But it's been full summer here for about, I think we're on 8 days now, where it's been up to 30 degrees Celsius to 35. We got up to 35 the last 2 days. That's about, call it 90 to 95 Fahrenheit. We had about 12 days ago now, we had an inch of hail, and the temperature was still going below freezing at night, and a little bit of above during the day, but crazy season. Basically no spring, winter to summer. And it's interesting because that's exactly what happened last fall. It was summer until the end of October, about 4 days of rainy weather, and then the snow came, started November 3rd and stayed. And then didn't fully melt here until pretty much the end of March. And then even at that point, there was some patches, and then just kind of really cold spring, hard frost every day. Like, there's no way you could do anything outside for that period. And now it's summer. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But it's been lovely because, as you can see behind me, I've been crushing it in the garden and getting my zone 1 plot ready without going in the greenhouse, but just kind of looking there. That's all planted out. One bed isn't planted, but I've got broccolis, kales, spinach, celery, carrots all planted in there. We've been harvesting off the spinach and kale for a month now. And I've just got my onions planted here. I'm going to be putting some potatoes in these 2 beds here. Got some strawberries that I pulled out and moved from this bed. My wife's doing sort of her perennial herb bed there. And getting those all prepped. It's been so hot that I've had to do a lot of this work in the evening. We get long days now. It's not, actually dark until probably 9:30, almost 10 now. So I've been doing a lot of work in the evening, about 4 or 5 hours of work. When at least gets the twilight, the sun kind of goes behind here, and but we have hours of twilight. But it's a beautiful time to get work done. So I've just been crushing in the garden. Of course, the Pasta Solar greenhouse is full of stuff. Everything there is blooming like crazy. I've planted my tomatoes in the high tunnel, which I'll show you here. I've got my strawberries, and these little beds here have been coming back. Garlic is up. These beds, that's my onions from last winter. I'm just kind of letting them go as far as they can. Maybe I'll collect some seed from them. There are some heirlooms in there. And you can see the house behind. Construction has started again on the house. The guys are crushing. Raised up the ICFs another 3 levels. They're putting the window bucks and door bucks in now. We had to use the mini excavator to lift that big one in this morning. And so they're crushing. That's happening. Down in the high tunnel here, got tomatoes are all planted. This was 2 days of work for me to get this happening. Re-prep the beds, string up the lines. It's all me. I'm a one-man show in the garden. I pretty much do all the work. My wife and kids, of course, help with the harvest, but I do pretty much everything. And running urban farms for 10 years has certainly made it so that this type of work for me is very easy. And some people say, "Oh, you do this all by yourself?" It's like, yeah, well, I ran a farm for years. I got to show you. We got a henny penny. A broody hen, which I had in some videos earlier, that's hatched out, and we even got 3 more turkeys and put them underneath her, and she took them in. So pretty neat. Down here, going to be constructing. I put a ditch here that you can kind of see. That's to drain. So much water comes down here in the melt. And so I'll kind of put Big O in there and cover it up eventually, but it's sort of a French drain. It's going to be on the high side of a terrace I'm going to build out. This path here, I did as an orchard last year, but all the trees are dead. The grasshoppers took them out early, and then the deer came and finished them off in the winter, so they're totally dead. So I'm going to reconstruct this area and build another terrace. And this terrace I should be able to get between a third to a half acre, and it's going to wrap a little bit around that ridge there. But I'm just going to redo that whole thing, get some flat area. I've got tons of soil I can bring down there, and that will be the new orchard. But other than that, there's not much going on in these beds or anything else. I kind of just showed you, really in a nutshell, what's going on. But check out these hens. So that's a turkey right there, and that's a turkey as well, and that's the other turkey. And then Miss Henny Penny here, she's got 5 of her own chicks, 3 blackies and 2, there's the other one, and 2 yellow ones. These chicks came from the roosters that we had, which I have killed, but long story there. So I don't know what variety, they're a different variety. She's a Columbia Rock, and is a great dual purpose bird. I find the dual purpose birds are actually amazing at laying eggs. Like, these birds put out an egg a day almost year round, and so they're amazing. But they're also a kind of bird that if you needed meat, I could essentially keep breeding that bird, and I have a half decent meat bird and a really good layer. So they're really good birds, and she's just been such a good mama hen. And anyways, there's a little squeaking happening here. So I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I'm heading down to Texas for the Exit and Build Summit, and it's May 18th through 21st. I believe there'll be a link in this video. Check it out if you want to meet me in person. It's going to be an awesome place to do that. I'm a social guy too. When I do events, and I used to do them for years, I did events. I was on a flight to the US every month. Some months 2, 3, 4 times a month. And so it's been a while, but I really enjoy these events. So if you want to hang out with me, I'm going to do a talk about finding the perfect homestead property, kind of based on the course that we released a few weeks ago now. And we're going to delve deep into specific properties. So the first presentation I'm going to do is going to be on the whole framework and just going through that. I think it's a 50-minute talk. There'll be a little bit of time for Q&A. And then I'm going to do a 1-hour talk the next day that's just going to go through examples in that framework. And there'll be interaction and stuff too in that talk. It'll be a bit more intimate. And we'll go through a number of different properties and show wins and successes for each scale of permanence, going from climate all the way down to aesthetics and experience and everything in between. Evaluate properties basically on those things. So that's what I'll be doing at that event. And one thing that I wanted to talk about in this video that I've thought a lot about in the last little while, because we've been on this land for about 2.5 years now. I bought this place in September 2020, and we took possession of it. We took possession of it September 2020, but we didn't really move full time on here till September 2021. I was commuting here 3 times a week and staying nights in here, and my family would come up for weeks at a time. We kind of used it as a vacation home because we didn't sell our home until 2021, September. And we used it as sort of a vacation home. And then I would come and stay, and they'd go back home, and I'd do work, and I was running the crew at that point. But yeah, we're on our 3rd construction season here right now. And we've had 2 winters living up here full time, and then a half winter the first year. And I've really got to experience what it's like living on the land in a more visceral way than I've ever experienced. So when I got into all this stuff, even when I was doing the urban farming thing, I always wanted to be on the land and just living on the land. Because from the time I was 16 years old, I was always philosophically bothered by the idea that in order to live in the modern day world as we know it, for the most part, and at least this has been my experience living in Canada, is you have to get a job, go to work to make dollars, pay tax on those dollars, pay inflation on those dollars, pay regulatory compliance, occupational licensing, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of it, you're actually with a reduced form of capital, because what is money? Money, you can go into a long, check out Mike Maloney and information about that, about what is money, But essentially what it is your energy. It's your stored energy. You do work, you produce value, you do something for dollars, and wow, there's tons of mosquitoes in this area because of the pond. And then you use those dollars to get the things you need. But those dollars are continuously whittled away on all the work you do. And that's always philosophically bothered me, as long as I can remember. Like I said, when I was 16, I really started thinking about this. I'm 43 now, and I've wanted to get myself into a position where the majority of work that I do, so I'm talking about my time, I'm not talking about money that I make, because I'm at a point now in my life and my career where I have passive income, and so that brings with itself a whole bunch of other types of freedoms. But in the work that I do, chopping firewood, gardening, plowing snow, the litany of infinite tasks that exist on a homestead, when I do those things, I do that work and I give or take the direct benefit of that work untouched by other, greasy hands, if you will. And the central banking system, the sort of corporatocratic system that we live in, continuously enslaves you, but at a percentage. And so, because you could ask yourself the philosophical question, well, if slavery is to own 100% of somebody's work, you take a person, you house them and feed them, and they do work, and that work is all yours. That's slavery, technically. But at what percentage is it not slavery? Needless to say, I've always been bothered by that. And having lived on this land full time for, I guess, is it 2.5 years now? I've really, really got to see that benefit, and it is amazing. It is incredibly empowering, and it's the number one reason for me that I think people, if you want to escape the clutches of this slavery matrix system we have, and you want to exist in the world that you are, in the country that you are, yes, you can make the case that, okay, go to another country. Sure, you can make that case. But that's not what I've done. And so you might have that choice to do that if you want, but that's not my context. But in this context, I've been able to come here, and all the work that I do is solely owned by me, and I decide what to do with it. So every time I chop firewood, I heat my home and keep my family alive and healthy and warm throughout the winter. I did that work. Yes, it's work. Some rich people don't want to do that work. For me, I'm empowered by that work, and that work also stacks into the unschooling of my children, and they see their dad and their mom do the work, and they want to be involved. And so that's also helping create the betterment of our children. And instead of our kids going to the government indoctrination camps where they're teaching them about they can choose their gender and all this nonsense, you get these kids coming back that are brainwashed and then go against the family. Whereas when we live in this context, it all comes together holistically. And that's what I think is so amazing and so empowering about living on your own land and being able to own that work and do that work. And it serendipitously, synergistically groups together with everything you do. If you have the value, if you have the values that we do, we're freedom-minded people. We believe that there's a greater power beyond us, and we want to live in harmony with nature as best as we can. I could go on about all these values. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you probably have a sense of who I am and where my values are. But we have those things, and living in this way on our own land means that we can stack functions with everything we do, and we own everything we do. Like every job I do, I've been working like a madman ever since basically there was enough snow melted that I could now work outside and do things. I've been working, I probably put 3 weeks into my driveway already this year. I put in 3 culverts. I got to put a 4th one in very shortly. I fixed a number of switchbacks, brought in loads of crush. I'm a one-man landscaping crew. I got the machinery and I got the tools, and I worked that way for many years. Been doing that. I've been cranking hard on the garden outside for the last week and a half. Greenhouses were worked on months ago and are thriving. But you put in all this work. I own that work 100%. I own it. No greasy-handed, whatever you want to call it, parasite can come in and take that work from me. I can become less of a slave. And then you might make the philosophical case, well, aren't you a slave to that work? Yes, I am. You're always working for somebody, but I'm working for my family or myself. And I can have synergy in that idea of sort of this, in permaculture, sort of holistic idea of stacking functions. So I do work on the homestead. I chop firewood. That firewood in the short term has a payoff of it heats the home tonight and the next day. I also get exercise when I do that. Some people pay memberships to go to a gym. And when I'm doing that, chopping that firewood, my son and my daughter are witnessing their father do work. They're witnessing their father use a dangerous tool safely. They are seeing the benefit of the work. They're seeing the hard work and then the benefit of that work viscerally and experiencing that in the gardens, in the greenhouses, in everything we do here, the landscaping, the wild foraging. My wife and my daughter pick mushrooms and forage. Right now there's false Solomon seal everywhere that we're harvesting. They do all these things. It's all integrated. And in modern day society, everything's so compartmentalized that, again, you go to work to make dollars that are inflated, and then they're taxed through inflation first, regulatory compliance, occupational licensing, income tax, sales tax, all these things. And then that task is compartmentalized. You drove to work from the suburbs into the city to work. Your family doesn't see the work. Then you got to take your kids and go put them in the public school because you don't have time to teach them things because you're too busy in your career. And both parents are working. So the government or whatever institution is that you're paying or inadvertently paying to raise up your kids is now off your hands. And then now your son's coming home and saying, Dad, I think I'm a girl today. And you're going, how the hell did you come to that conclusion? Well, because you didn't take responsibility. You didn't own it. And so this system compartmentalizes you in such a way that now parents are hearing this on a regular basis. This is a common thing. And you look at the delusion that's happening in society. And I didn't want this video to be about that because I've done enough ranting about how fucked things are. Excuse my language. But that doesn't matter up here at all. So when you get on your own land, it completely changes your existence right down to your core energy and how you exist in this world. Is that I could go on for hours about how everything I do here and the fact that my family is here with me integrated has a complete holistic context to it that you just can't get in the suburbs. When you've compartmentalized your life, compartmentalized your children, and everything you do, your diet, your food, everything comes from somewhere else. You have no connection to it. It divides and compartmentalizes everything in your whole entire world. And you don't even really fully understand it until you get out there and do it. And I think, ultimately what I want to do and why I built my course, Finding the Perfect Homestead Property, why I'm going to the Exit and Build Summit, is that I want people to experience what we're experiencing because it is truly empowering. Look at me. I've already lost like 15 pounds just from the last 2 weeks. The health benefits of being on your own land is unbelievable. We don't live near any big ag. The only thing that happens here that I can't control, which is annoying, is the chemtrailing. You probably saw some in the sky earlier. But I've got a couple solutions now for that. One, I've mentioned the boiling vinegar. Before, just boil vinegar and it seems to clear the sky. Just put a hot plate outside, boil 4 liters, and it seems to clear the sky. It works, but I got to do that, which is annoying. And sometimes it's actually hard to keep up on because I just get so busy with other things. My wife's so busy with the kids and the stuff in the home. But we've recently put some electroculture rods around, and maybe I'll start heading back and I'll show you one of them. I've put them kind of on I did 8 of them to start. Anyways, I'll show you those as we walk and talk a little bit more. But kind of going back to what I was saying is that it's so empowering when you are on your own land. And so maybe how I'll wrap this video up is kind of sharing some ideas with you on how I think you can get on the land even if you don't have the money, because I know that's going to be the number one reason, especially if you've thought about doing this in the past, about getting on the land, buying a place. Building a place is a whole other, cost, but I'll give you some thoughts on how I think you could do that without having 200 grand in cash, say, to put in a big down payment or something like that. One would be, look at your family. Look at your parents, uncles, aunts, relatives, and if you have been awake or awakened to the things that are going on, and you can see this, it's a continual compartmentalization of society, getting more and more extreme in this sort of controlled demolition of Western culture. And you can see where that goes, and you might think, well, do I really want my parents living in a home, or my uncle or aunt or my grandparents or people that I love? Maybe there's a way to come together and put some money in a pot and buy a place and get the generations back on the land. And some people are going to face some hurdles with that, but any hurdle there's a solution for everything, I believe. There's a remedy for everything too in the law. And think about that. Do you want your parents or grandparents or whatever in an institution where they're force vaccinating them? Or not force vaccinating, but basically saying you can't stay here unless you get the shot? Do you want that? Probably not. So, something to think about. There's one way. Another would be to, instead of saying, okay, I want to buy land. Oh, I can't do that. I can't afford that right now. How am I going to do this? Say, well, maybe there's a stage I could take, a step I could take to get me in that direction and not there all the way and right away. And I would say to that is just first get out of the city. Just move to a smaller rural area. Go, to a smaller town. I think the optimal size town is smaller than 20,000, but but bigger than say 3,000, maybe 2,000. Because if towns are too small and all the towns you're surrounded with are too small, then you just don't have good access to resources. But you might be able to start working in another town, and you'd be surprised how much demand there is in small towns for work. Yeah, they might not be the perfect jobs that you wanted, but it at least gets you there and gets you in a place, connected to a place, meeting people. Once you start experiencing those kinds of things, the world opens up, connections open up, you start meeting people, opportunities pop up. You have to be available for the opportunities in order to get them. So that would be another one. And I would just say, I could go on about this for a lot longer, and maybe we'll save more of this for another video, because that wasn't what I was intending to actually even discuss in this video. But I kind of wanted to lay down, man, look at all these mosquitoes that are out now. This is going to be nasty. Fortunately, it's going to be really hot today, and they're not going to like that. But I kind of wanted just to share those philosophical, empowering thoughts with you about when you're on your own land, how you just own it. You own all that. Yes, you own the responsibility, the burden, the risk of it, but you own the benefit 100%. And then when you give that benefit to your family, it's directly from you to them. There's no, like I said, greasy hands in between that money, none of this stuff. And that's empowering. And I think the elite really don't want you to have that, right? They want you to be as compartmentalized as the family farm used to be, right? People used to live on the land and they do multiple crops. They always had huge gardens. Now farms in the countryside are just monoculture industrial ag with center pivots, and the families that operate them don't even have gardens. They're just growing monocrop to whatever the price that Monsanto dictates today. And it's compartmentalized, and that is the trick ultimately. That is the grabbler's trick, if you will, is to compartmentalize you, tax you, inflate you into the most efficient form of slavery that's ever existed. Because the original form of slavery wasn't actually that efficient, because you had to house the slave and feed the slave. And so that was another thing you had to manage. Whereas in today's slavery, they take care of it themselves and you get the benefit. Maybe the percentage is a little bit less. Maybe it went from 90% to maybe 50%, or you could probably make the case that it's probably more now. But it's certainly the most efficient form of slavery that's ever existed. And so the more you get on the land and the more you own the work that you do, the more you can get away from that. And there's of course an infinite number of nuance that you could go into in that. It is more complicated because where you live. And I did another video actually a while ago about that, about 5 things. I'll put a link to it in here if you want to check that out, about ways to be free and what to think about, and how freedom is sort of a freedom index and how it's measured. But you can check that video out. And I'll be at Exit and Build in Texas, Bastrop, Texas. Super, super stoked. Michael Reynolds, the creator of Earthships, will be there. Patrick Wood, wrote the book on technocracy, will be there. Jeff Lawton is doing a Zoom call in, so he won't physically there, but he's doing a presentation, and a number of other great speakers in the sort of the freedom / permaculture movement, and it's going to be amazing. I'm just super, super stoked. Like I said, I haven't been on a flight since basically February 2020, right when the Rona was starting to crank up. I just said, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out for a while. I'm not taking a shot. And it's funny, the US just dropped the shot mandate for Canadians, but they dropped it for the Chinese like back in January. But they kept it for Canadians until, I think it's going to end right before I come, like May 11th or something like that. So just ridiculous insanity. But I'm coming down and I'm looking forward to meeting some of you guys. Again, there'll be a link to that event in the show notes here, and I hope to see some of you folks down there. I'm stoked to hang out with people, go for drinks, and just really maximize the time down there. And I'll tell you what about these events is, you might look at the price of this event and go, can I really afford that? And it might not suit your context to come to this, and if that's the case, fair enough. But I'll tell you what, I've been doing events like this for so many years, and the biggest thing you pull from events like this goes beyond the content. The content, there's great, it's amazing. You can view it online too and get the nuance of the content more than just say you would watching a YouTube video or something like that. But going to the event, the people you're going to meet are going to change your life. If you're open to opportunities and you like to meet people, it's going to change your life. The things you're going to learn, it's the off conversations with people when you have more interaction that you actually learn a lot from. And that's why I always sought out mentors when I was kind of coming up and really realizing what I wanted to do in life. I sought mentors, and I had a number of men, I think it was about 5 or 6 of them, that were significant mentors for me. And those people I met in things like this, in ways like this, getting out there, putting yourself out there, and being open to experiences. These things can change your life, and all for the better, because I think social capital is one of the most, if not the most valuable form of capital. And it's that network and meeting people, and the interactions themselves pay dividends for the rest of your life. So I hope to see you guys down there. Again, there'll be a link in the show notes. May 18th through 21st or 22nd. There's farm tours happening on this event, and I'll be there for, I think I'm there till the 22nd. So yeah, looking forward to seeing some of you folks down there. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. If you want to meet me in Texas, May 18th through May 22nd, follow the link in the show notes or click the link here on the screen. Hope to see you there.